Good morning, and I'm happy to welcome you to the Yoga Alliance Community Sangha. And today my guest is Bruno Garrote, and he is from São Paulo, Brazil. And he will be sharing with you on Kashmir Shaivism. So it's a wonderful topic. I'm so pleased that he's with us today. But let us begin by centering ourselves. Come to a comfortable seated position and let's lift the heart forward and drop the shoulders down. And just notice the breath. And our pranayama practice this morning is Ujjayi pranayama. So I'd like to demonstrate that very quickly. Place your right hand in front of your mouth and simply make the sound or blow out of your mouth a let's make it breathy. Do that again. Blow into your hand. We'll even do it once more. Good. Now we're going to pull that breathy sound in toward the back of the throat. So the mouth is closed and it's through the nostrils and you're pulling in that breathy sound. You'll hear me. Now join me, drawing in. Your mouth is hollow. Here we go. We exaggerate the sound. Lips are sealed or closed. Breath floats on them. Inhale. Exaggerating the sound. Ujjayi. Again. And let us make that sound softer. Again. And we'll each continue at our own pace just for 1 minute. And bring your awareness back to this moment. Notice how you feel. I'd like to read something. Live the full life of the mind, exhilarated by new ideas, intoxicated by the romance of the unusual. That is by Ernest Hemingway. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about Bruno Garrote. He's a curious man, and he's very curious about how we move between the usual creative, the other, and the body consciousness. He uses the philosophy of movement and brings the philosophy of movement and consciousness into all of his teachings. Bruno has a PhD on Kashmir Shaivism and its concept of autonomy and recognition of the other in a non-dual way. He is a yoga teacher, an AcroYoga teacher, a contact improvisation dance teacher, and massagist. And what fascinates me is that he has, in addition, other areas of interest that include body politics, political morality, epistemology, and minorities. So I welcome you, Bruno, and thank you for joining us today on the Community Sangha.
Thank you very much. So thank you for welcoming me here. So I will be looking at the question as well. So Maya is gonna help me with that also. So thank you very much for the invitation, this opportunity to be talking a little bit with you, all of you, about that. So that's it. So about Kashmir Shaivism, what I'm calling the mundane yoga beyond yoga, right? So I will try to be concise, so we have more time to have some talks, some talking beyond that. And then for me, the idea of Kashmir Shaivism, which is really, it fits a lot this poem that Maya chose, which is kind of trying to seize the day, as well as understanding the unusual parts of it, and even what we can call weird parts or weirdness, and that can come from just ordinary and simple actions, or just some really unusual ones, right? So for me, it's a really powerful idea of us to integrate what we understand as theory and practice. So usually we are doing some or the other, but really to immerse ourselves in this possibility. So by doing that, is actually interesting, because before I was doing yoga a lot, like for more than I don't know, 6 or 7 years, and then when I started dancing, I actually I found the presence in yoga more than everything else. So when I began dancing and specific contact improvisation, then I found, okay, I'm present. I need to be present in the movement, because as I'm moving, I don't want to fall, or I don't want to step on somebody else's feet, and so on. So I really have to be present, right, while I'm dancing. And when I got back to my yoga mat, and okay, so I'm doing this alone, by myself, but is as I'm dancing. So I really have to be present. So it's interesting, all the theoretical and verbally talk about being present in the moment in the yoga practice. But when I just do a little dance, and then it all hits me in a different way. So that being said, is we can find yoga in different ways, and we can sometimes be unexpected surprise of where yoga can come from, and the idea of present and being in the moment, and actually even meditating, right? So, and this is interesting, because when I was beginning yoga and I was starting to study Yoga Sutra from Patanjali, there's there's a lot of good and really insightful concepts about it. However, this division, I would say, between the body and consciousness, what we call Purusha and Prakriti, was something that really strikes me as a little bit quite bizarre. Why we're doing this division between Purusha and Prakriti? Why we are talking about duality? Why are we in this path of Dvaita and not Advaita, right? Dual and not non-dual. So for me, it was, something happened between the Yoga Sutra and now, right? For sure. And a lot of stuff happened. We had Vedanta, we have Mimamsa, Vaisheshya, Nyaya, but something that was really important in the Indian history, and that influenced the West a lot in what we call contemporary yoga, it's the birth of what we call Kashmir Shaivism. And why is that? Kashmir Shaivism, it is what we call, like, quotation mark, tantras, like tantra or tantras in the West, and with all the misconceptions that for sure comes with that, right? Reducing tantra to sex and stuff like that. But studying beyond that, like Kashmir Shaivism, it's a really beautiful practice and theory as well, that will actually put together and integrate and actually come more with this idea of yoga as union. And this was when I started reading Abhinavagupta. I can write that at the chat if you want. So Abhinavagupta, as we're coming in this tradition that we can call it not only Dvaita, but Advaita, but we can call it Paramadvaita. That means like a really non-duality or an integral non-duality or a whole non-duality. This is really different from the Yoga Sutras and also different from the Vedanta. Not the Neo Vedanta, which is also something that we have contemporary, which is influenced by the Kashmir Shaivism. So that fascinated me a lot. So I started reading all the material that was going on with what we call it Tantra, but really going for the 7th and 8th century, way before contemporary. And that's when I came across this really beautiful book that it's called Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. Again, I can write it down in the chat. So it's Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. And there I found, so this is the idea of 112 types of yoga. It called it like that. So 112 types of yoga or 112 dharanas, which was the practices. And that was really amazing for me because they were speaking of some exercises which we can compare with the somatic exercises that we have now in the 20th and the 21st century. So this was amazing. Understanding how images or movements can affect your consciousness and how that is really beautiful to really understand and go deep on that, right? And by saying that, they were really open-minded. So they weren't just orthodox exercises, just thinking about really strong austerities, but they were really thinking about actually kind of the background. And the first step is to understand that we have all have at least an opening, a breach to the divine, or whatever you can call it, the divine or the expansion of the self or the beyond I or something like that. So we all have experienced that. So more than once actually in life. And what it wants us to understand that the trick is not something like we have to be like an hermit or somebody that it's besides the society or the norms, that it's austerity practices, meditating really in the mountains, something like that. But as we are dancing, as we are hearing some music, as we are appreciating some food, and this is all part of this 112 types of yoga. I remind you again, it's in the 7th and 8th century. And he gives really simple examples of how we get out of the usual. And that's the thing, right? So how we get out of the automatism. So what we do automatically. So, and especially especially in these days right now, where with everything that's going on in the world, there's a really specific sloka, a specific dharana that I liked a lot, which is this feeling that when we are walking and we, by surprise, by chance, we see a friend that we haven't seen in a while, right? So he says that at this moment we are filled with really great emotion, and this is really beautiful, right? Especially right now because we're all the social distance and so on. So I keep asking myself, oh, what's going to happen when we really can meet a friend that we are not, we haven't been in touch, like physically in touch for a while. So this really overwhelmed feeling of being, whoa, really out of ourselves. We're really expressing out of this body. And he says, this is a moment of bridge. This is a moment of opening to the divine, of the expansion of consciousness. So seize it. It's unusual. You're getting out of your usual way. You're just going for shopping or, I don't know, doing some whatever daily stuff. And whoa, something strikes you, right? So cherish it and really take a look to it. So this is really beautiful. This is just one example. Others are like you're swinging in a wagon or an animal, but we can think about it. Just for me, it's something I think just when we are kind of losing balance and getting balance again when we are in the subway, something like that. So we're just swinging, right? So this motion of swinging, it relaxes us, it soothes us. So so how can we experience these different possibilities of daily um, exercise and daily moments that that just breaks from our standard and what we are going to point A to point B and just suddenly hits us and we're whoa, I'm doing where am I, who am I, right? So for me this is really beautiful,
And
and this
I have
is
to stop
for
you
sure.
there.
Yeah.
Does that, when you have those sort of experiences where you leave the mundane or the ordinary, um, is that a transmission to the divine, or is that where we have an experience of the divine?
Well, yeah, that's a really important question because that depends on how we define divine, and this is really important in Kashmir Shaivism. Um, so this is a beautiful one. So the idea is not that there is a divine or there is a god or Shiva or whatever other deity. Um, this idea that Kashmir brings of autonomy and recognition of the other. So it's important. These two concepts, which really like fundamental one was. The idea is that I am I am the divine, right? So I am
Yes.
the whole. I am the whole thing. What has happened is just that I have a limitation of my consciousness as to be individualized as this person specifically, right? So this is the thing. So the whole purpose, the whole objective of the whole aim of the practice is to remind ourselves how we can expand ourselves, not to be something that we're not, but just remind us for something that we already are, right? So, and this is important. So we are actually breaching or opening to the divine, which is actually breaching and opening to ourselves.
Mhm.
There's a really important scholar that's called Mark Dixkovsky from this tradition of Kashmir Shaivism. It's a really weird name. Also, adds a lot of different. I can wrote those down and said it at some point. So he he says a really an anecdote, really simple but really powerful, which is um, he's just seated and watching by far a father and his son, and he himself doesn't have a child, but he brings himself he brings his intention to really be observing this connection between father and son for a while, and he realized that when he comes back to himself, something changed. So at this point of observing, he was that much into it, he was that much immersed that what he was actually doing, he was emptying himself, he was decentralizing himself. So he was not more the center, and as he was doing that, he was kind of living the life as the other. So what we can call simply empathy, if you will, right? So it's like how to experience another experience. So living life as we observe and try to understand how other minds or how other consciousness are experiencing this world. And by doing that, by emptying ourselves and decentralizing ourselves and egoizing ourselves, when we come back fuller, right? We come back more expanded because we are not just only us. We are this person or the experience, and we are more whole. So this is the beautiful idea of how we can practice also meditation as a meditation to understand different experiences. And that is understanding that I am the divine, but this other person, these other people are also the divine. And expanding myself and decentralizing myself and emptying myself, it's actually making myself fuller or more expand or more complex to other experiences. Yeah.
How much of this experience would be autonomic?
Okay, would you like to give an example of
I
that?
mean, like how much of this, how, you know, this autonomy and recognition, how much
Yeah,
of it just happens to us versus
for sure.
practicing to make it happen? Is there an element of it that is, oh, you know,
Yeah,
let me give you an example.
for
Like
sure.
in the Black church, there is hand clapping
For
and
sure. Yeah,
movement while
yeah,
singing is happening, and one gets lifted up,
for sure.
one gets raised from a place where you come in feeling one way, you experience this, and then you're different. So is that just because it is, or could that be thought of as a practice to change? You get me?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, so that's the thing. Yeah, as I said, he says, and not only he, Abhinavagupta that I have in mind, but the whole tradition says that um, the divine is present in himself all the time, right? So we have, which is yourself, because you are with yourself all the time. So you're presenting yourself all the time. So for sure, there is always possibility for meeting the divine, which is yourself. Uh, the thing is, sometimes we're too distracted with other thoughts that we miss it, right? Or we don't treasure enough, or we don't sustain that feeling enough. So that's the thing. So we actually kind of have the possibility, and probably we're experiencing the divine all day. So every day we're doing that. However, what we want to do, and that's why we practice, and that's why we study, and that's why we learn other techniques, is how to sustain that better. It's how to identify that. So, okay, so how can I create a breathing pattern that can make me more aware of these sometimes brief moments, these openings, and how to make these openings go wider, right? So, and that's it. Sometimes, well, even people don't know it, but when they see it, they're clapping and they're dancing and they're moving, and then poof, they're not thinking a lot about anything else. They're there in that moment. So sometimes what happens is our body like contracts itself back. So, oh no, I'm losing control, right? So what I'm doing, I'm here, I'm clapping. So I start judging myself. Should I supposed to be clapping? Is this a childish way to behave as an adult, and so on and so on? A lot of adult thoughts and judgments. But when you go beyond that, like I'm in the moment, I'm clapping, and it's great. I'm dancing, I'm moving, and it's great. So if you keep doing that, and if you keep more comfortable with the idea of losing control, which is actually what you're losing, is losing the idea of the self. You're using the idea of the limited self. And for sure, it can be scary, and it can lead to despair, because we have a tendency to understand what are our limits, and what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to like that? Am I supposed to laugh at this? Am I supposed to be that much happier, right? So, and all these thoughts. So this is interesting for us to understand that when this process began, how can I let myself go even further? Because I'm emptying myself. I'm kind of losing control. I don't know where my ground is, and I'm becoming something more. So that's scary, because I don't know what's happening. Am I going to embarrass myself? Am I going to start singing? What's going to happen? Maybe, right?
Yes.
So, and maybe not. And my voice beautiful enough? So there's all these thoughts, right? And it's your voice is your voice, and it's beautiful when you're authentic speaking, authentic singing. So yeah, I would say that, something like that.
So the practices, if we examine yoga, which is union of self, and seeing self as the divine, then would you say that we can use the various practices within the 8 limbs of yoga to sort of um, get us ready to sustain these moments?
For sure. Yeah, not only that, but for sure. So pranayama, what is that? So when we're doing that, we're actually telling ourselves what, okay, there's a lot of thoughts going on. There's a lot of distractions going on. Maybe some noises, external noises. There's a lot, but okay, there's something I can do, and it's my own body. It's a tool that I already have in myself. So I'm gonna use it. Okay, I'm here. Boom, boom, boom. Voices, noises. I'm here. It's not something that you get it. Sometimes people are like, oh, meditate. I cannot meditate. right? People do that a lot. They're really, right? People, when we're meditating, we're not like, oh, okay, I hit the stage of meditating and I'm going to sustain it for 1 hour. It's not like that. It's like losing your balance and catching it again, right? So you're always like oscillating and coming back. So the practices will allow you to be more, it's going to be like better in sustaining this balance. And this is where it integrates with dance, right? And or acrobatics or even yoga, right? So why we are doing upside position? So why are we doing off balance position? So what is this body practice has to do with spirituality, right? Because the way we deal with physical imbalance, the way we deal with fear of falling, with fear of losing control, it has to do with the way we deal with emotionally falling, emotionally losing control, and emotionally getting off balance. So if I can do that physically, it can help me a lot emotionally and spiritually. So that's why we do yoga, as we are doing in this with this consciousness. It's going to improve a lot our practice.
Wonderful. Can you tell us exactly how does the Shiva, Lord Shiva,
For sure.
and Kashmir Shaivism relate to one another? Or
For sure.
did they one grow from the other? I think I'd like to know.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, really brief history. So we have this six traditional darshanas
Yes.
that it's called the six visions or two darshanas. It's like drisht is the same root. So it's six different ways of seeing the world. So six philosophies, right? So we
Philosophy.
call it philosophies. So we call it darshanas. We call it, they are astikas. That means they're orthodox. That means they more or less, at least, they have the Vedas as a reference. So
Yep.
we have yoga, nyaya, vaishesha, samkhya, vedanta, and so on. So this is a thing. Um, However, we are still doing with duality, and we're still doing with deities that are more tradition. So this is more to do with Brahmanism and Vishnuism. So Brahma and Vishnu.
Mhm.
When we begin um, uh, introducing some practice, there are more Shaiva practice that mean from Shiva. Shaiva is the genitive or of Shiva. So when we begin introducing practice more related to Shiva, it can be practice that are more what we say destructive or more transgressive, because we're doing with really breaking down or shatter what our ego is supposed to be, right? And we can get out of this comfort zone. So when Shiva begins to enter yoga, and actually that's a really important point, because Shiva doesn't appear at all at Yoga Sutra. So you just, oh no, the Shiva is the, for sure, it's we consider it to be the father of yoga, but it's not at the Yoga Sutra. It comes way later. So it comes with Kashmir Shaivism, and that's with Hatha Yoga and so on. So Shaivism, again, Shaiva is Shiva, right? It can be close, but some people don't relate it that easy. So Shiva is Shiva, right? From Shiva. So it's Kashmir Shaivism. Okay. So that's where Shiva came into. And actually, they're going to use a lot of different names. We're going to use it Bhairava or Rudra or another names of Shiva. So when Shiva comes at this practice, it comes with this idea of a dancer. Shiva is also a dancer, right?
Dancing.
So with this idea of he's a dancer, and he moves a lot. He's dancing, but at some point he stops to meditate. It seems off, right? It seems bizarre, but no, that's the point. The point is Shiva, when it comes into the history of yoga, it comes specifically really strong in this idea of Kashmir Shaivism. It comes to show that what we were before understanding as a more ecstatic, like really stop, not moving, meditating or asana, can be a more moving asana, or it can be a more moving meditation, and it can be different ways of meditating. So the entering of Shiva, I would say it's the entering of movement, and is the entering of transitions. So we're finding yoga in different ways, not only orthodox way, but heterodox as well.
Absolutely. Someone, M. Mercer said that was a beautiful analogy of connecting the physical fears to the emotional that
Sure.
you spoke of before. And you know, with I always learned that much of the yoga that we study comes from Lord Shiva, or from
Yeah.
that his teachings. How do we um, apply these things today, right now, given we're in the pandemic, we are in we're in the North America, where yoga is seen mostly as asana. We don't often get this profound teaching of movement, or of autonomy and recognition. You know, let's speak to that. We have a few minutes left. We're coming up. It's 10:30. So within these last few minutes, if you could just talk about how can we use this today, and how can yoga teachers broaden what they teach to bring in the philosophy in a simplistic way.
Sure.
I know
Um,
that was a hard question, but
oh, it's okay. Yeah, that's
okay.
good. That's what we're here for, right?
Yeah.
So that's so I would like to answer that, connecting with the also the idea of minorities that are happening right now. Well, not happening just right now, but they're exploding right now in a more beautiful way, I would say, in terms of what the community is, the response of what's happening, right? So so what was going on before? So that's it. So Shaivism and Shiva is something that we have to do also with transgression. And what they were doing before as women, or people with the Shudras, people with the lower caste, or people that were outside society, or Buddhists, or people that are not from our sect, people are not from a religion or a group, right? So a group of friends or peers cannot practice or cannot even read the scriptures, the holy books, and so on. So Kashmir Shaivism brings with the ideas of this idea of everybody can do it, everybody can practice. So it's a more democratic way of doing it. So women can do it, the Shudras can do it, they're untouchable, right? So the people that are untouched in India can do it. So, and reminding ourselves that there's a really important part, and usually people don't know it. The word in Sanskrit for what we call it caste, or system of caste, is varna, and varna means color. So it's a racist system from the beginning. So this is important because the Aryan people were coming into India and they would have a whiter skin. They were getting into the more darker skin here in India, and that's where the system of caste system began. So it's a racist system from the beginning, and that has influenced a lot the whole history of India and how the labor divisions do it works there, right? So that's the thing. So what I think is we have to think as Shiva and yoga as they're taken in a political way. It's biopolitics. It's the politics of light. It's the politics of how bodies are used or organized and depend of the relationships of power, right? So from the beginning, understanding Shiva and understanding yoga is a political way to understand yoga. And that's really important right now, right? Because right now we have this crisis happening, this sanitary crisis happening. And for sure that is more, it's bad, it's worse for the minorities, for people that don't have access for the other stuff that the privileged castes or the privileged classes have. So this is just a crisis that just accentuates, just show more what was already happening for centuries. So this is really important for us to position ourselves not as yoga. Oh, we don't fight. We don't. It's not violence. We cannot come and mix that up with non-acting, with being passive, with not doing nothing. So yoga, as I understand, is to make a stance, to do a stance, to have a position, to have a posture, right? Posture in the sense. You have to have an idea, and you have to manifest yourself, especially yoga teacher or leaders in general in your communities. How you can do that, how you can address that subject. It's not like, oh, this is not a problem in our community. Our community is not racist. Our community is not like power and rich. For sure it is. So how you can understand that and the different levels of that is going on. So address it. So this is really important. Yeah.
And it's Kriya is action.
For sure.
So that to me has always been very powerful and important. As a teacher, leader person out here, being connected to self, but also being able to stand for what is satya and what is truth and what is right. Um, so I also like to ask our guests, I want to say thank you. I'm so filled with the pleasure of this conversation. But in these last, we have 36, 5 or so minutes, 7 minutes. Is there something that you want to share and leave with our community today? And I just want to read someone, Luana Kamali says, I am glad for watching this. Thank you. Luana from Sao Paulo.
Great. Yeah. So yeah, I just want to mention that I have written the name of the philosopher, Abhinavagupta, at the chat. So I think it's going for all panelists and attendees. So this is a really important persons for you to know, right? So somebody usually we know Patanjali. So I would say study more philosophies that come from Shiva in general, that not only what we call it classics or orthodox, but especially the heterodox, because this is where you're going to find the weirdness, the unusual, the outcasts, right? So, and this is where the beautiful part is, because we're more complex, have more diversity. So I will really go research on that. So Abhinavagupta and also Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, which I put it there, right below.
Yes, thank you.
And I would like to close to remind that some stuff that the surrealists or like and the Dadaism were doing in the 20th century, like yeah, some weird stuff that they were doing. There were people doing that as the Pashupatis. That comes from a lineage of Shivaism way before. So there are people that are doing crazy dancers just to shock society and getting their minds off the attitude, their usual, to say this is also static. This is also a way to communicate with the divine. So what I would encourage you and everybody is try stuff that are different, that are out of your comfort zone. That doesn't mean it's your traditional yoga, and you don't even have to think, oh, I'm doing yoga. Don't think about that. Just do it and experiment that, because it's a different way of expressing your body. And if you're expressing your body physically, non-verbally, in different ways, that's internally doing some moving. It's moving stuff inside. You don't know it, but it's moving. So if you're moving outside externally, internal moving is happening, even without you knowing it. Later, maybe you have more self-aware of that, but the important part is get moving, right? So for me, that experiment, we were talking before about hip hop. So, right, and that's it. Experiment different ways of moving. Right? Sometimes it can be locking, it can be like, it can be Tai Chi, it can be whatever, but just move. And different move, yeah, and for sure. And different movements is going to be different ways of viewing the world and different ways of expressing yourself. Sometimes it's fast, because sometimes you have anger and you want to express that, right? So poof, get it out. And sometimes, okay, it's more relaxed, it's calm. So it's all good, right?
Yeah, all good. I want to, so many things are coming in. It says, greetings, everyone. I am originally from Malaysia, and Wana means color. And yes, yoga has always helped all races in Malaysia to come together. And then great webinar, easy explanations of complex ideas. Thank you so much. I love this information and this calling to go outside of my comfort zone. And someone says, love you from Wisconsin. So it's, wonderful that we've been able to, excellent presentation is another one that just popped up with many exclamation points. You know, so I think now we have a few minutes left. You know, I think that this is a way for the yoga teacher to realize that yoga can be so much more than simply the, you know, we can expand it. We have the 8 limbs, we have asana, which is the movement, but in that lexicon, we can broaden, particularly under asana, to incorporate all different forms of movement. And we can incorporate just a hint of philosophy into our teachings. And that can come in the forms of poetry, stories, anecdotes from our own personal lives. And so I've seen, Swami Vidyananda says, I've seen some meditation techniques that are body-based from Kashmir Shaivite tradition. What are your favorites?
Yeah. Uh, for me, this one specifically about the seeing the friend that we haven't seen in a while. For me, it's a really beautiful one because I really feel like that. Right? Sometimes I'm dreaming of seeing a friend and meeting him in the street. So I think this practice of connection, right? When you're meeting, so we're really gonna treasure that more, or maybe not, but try to treasure it because it's really a treasure. So this connection. Yoga can come from connection and not from isolation. So it's really important for us
Yes.
to be playful
And
with that.
someone else says, thank you, feeling blessed, fantastic. I am grateful. This is Safara Fisher. I am grateful to bringing us in tune with the idea of expanding our definition of yoga in practice, especially to create inclusivity. Thank you for the Swamis to look at that were considered outcast. It's kind of written
For
up
sure.
there. Thank you for I guess, speaking about the Swamis that were considered outcasts. And we thank
Yeah,
you for your comments, Safara.
for
So
sure.
in these last 3 moments, we are going to just allow ourselves to get comfortable and more conscious, if that is possible. Bring your palms to your lap with your palms face down, and let us close the community Sangha with a meditation, Shamatha Vipassana meditation. Just lower your chin and look at the earth or the floor or your desk. Look away from you and notice your breath. Notice the rise and fall of your belly with each inhalation. Keep bringing yourself back to your breath. Allow your eyes to open. And in honor of this wonderful conversation and this enlightenment, we will join our voices and chant the sound Om. Bring your palms into Anjali Mudra. Inhale. Om. Again, inhale. Om. And once more, inhale. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Jai Bhagwan, I honor the light within you.